Well, this isn't the internet, Jess. Right? This is real life.
Until Dawn is a PlayStation 4 exclusive cinematic horror game.
Jesus!
Oh, this is going to be one of those. Sony's been doing really well with exclusives this console generation. Whenever I hear Sony's putting money into a game, I know there's going to be some amount of quality behind it. They've also invested a lot in these narrative experience games. Now, I've never played a David Cage game, but I have played The Walking Dead Season 1 and 400 Days, and those were kind of spooky, I guess. Until Dawn starts a year before the game proper happens. Well, actually it begins with this stupid butterfly effect shit. Basically, you can sum it up by saying that every decision, no matter how small it is, will have consequences. God, this game is obsessed.
Boom. Butterfly effect.
The game really begins with a prank. A rather cruel prank, actually.
Oh my god. She's taking her shirt off. What? Oh my god.
That sends one of the characters, Beth, chasing after her sister, Hannah. Things don't end well. Oh, I hope they're okay. This tutorial level does not leave a good first impression. It's the game at its worst. Somehow this is the scariest imagery in the whole game. A year later, the 8 remaining friends get back together in the same remote lodge in the mountains. Some weird spooky stuff starts happening, and the main goal is to survive. Yeah, we get it. You're spooky. Let's go back a second and start with Sam. Here, she's watching the invite video.
It's beyond awesome to have you guys all back this year. First off, I gotta say, I am super excited to welcome...
Holy shit, that's Rami Malek. I should tell everyone that I'm not a horror movie buff by any means. I actually don't really like horror movies. I think a lot of them are based on frequent jump scares instead of actual creepy imagery. For every good horror movie I find, there's about 10 mediocre ones, and 50 total shit ones. So while I'm always happy to watch a good horror movie, I'm not a fan of the genre like some people are. Also, I know some people like to watch bad horror movies to laugh at them, and I can totally enjoy that with enough friends. But it's not something that I do a lot or seek out to do in my spare time. I bring this up because while writing this script, I was trying to come up with a horror movie that Until Dawn felt like, but honestly, I can't come up with much, and I can't compare it to something that I haven't seen. So, this game bathes itself in slasher movie atmosphere, though. Scary sounds in the distance? Moonlight? Spooky settings? All the good stuff. Look at these mines. Look at that sanatorium. What about this lodge? Actually, maybe turn on a light, guys.
Not good.
As you get to know Sam and follow her to the cable car, you can see that Until Dawn loves to frame its shots to make it look like the characters are being watched. I found the cinematography in this game is always on point. I also want to add that whenever the action kicks in, the game never looks too busy or like the frame is too zoomed in. From a graphics perspective, Until Dawn looks good. There's a lot of effort put into fidelity here. Sometimes the game looks okay, but I wouldn't say it ever looks downright bad. Some of the environments are rougher than others, but the lighting I mentioned earlier really pulls most of the weight. A large part of why this game looks so great is because they used real actors with motion capture. There's some pretty big names here.
I am Hayden Panettiere.
My name is Rami Malek.
This is a great example of how amazing actors can uplift a somewhat campy script.
Michael, I am a lady, and a lady needs a proper romantic setting.
Okay.
Honestly, all the actors in this game are fantastic.
Those things are a joke, man. They don't do shit.
No way, bro. I mean, we used to do it all the time. Me and... Well...
Josh, no hot water's kinda a major oversight, don't you think?
It's not surprising how much weight Rami Malek pulls. He plays the brother of the 2 sisters who died at the beginning. The whole time you can tell he's forcing himself not to think about what happened, and to just have a good time. He always seems like he's on the edge of breaking down.
I mean, I know it must be really tough without your sis.
Stop.
I just meant that...
No, I know what you meant. You know, seriously, I'm over it. And I want us to have a good time, you know? Like we always used to.
Using real-life actors led to some beautifully smooth animations as well. You can actually watch the special features to see how they did the facial capture to the motion capture and then put it together. I'm a big fan of this. Normally you wouldn't get a window like this into how these games are made. However, some of the videos aren't really worth watching.
I am the Wendigo!
But most are worth a watch.
And she's a huge animal lover. She's vegan.
The only thing that seems off is sometimes their mouths look weird.
That explodes.
Are we like in a movie right now?
If we are, I hope it's a rom-com.
Aside from that, my only real complaint is spoiler territory, so that can wait. The real question is this game scary? Now, that's a hard question to answer because horror is so subjective. Some people are afraid of clowns, others are afraid of spiders, and some people are afraid of real-life boogeymen. Mentally, you can distance yourself from the horror in this game, and it's easy to never really be scared. It really relied heavily on jump scares. Those are always frightening, but are never scary. Some aren't earned, like this one.
Thank you. I'll be here all week.
But it does have a few jump scares that I really liked. Here, take this one for example. Mike is peering through this window, and they draw your focus to the other side of the vehicle, and then, bam! This game knows how to do horror right, too. Look at this scene, for instance.
L-I-B
The library. Maybe there's something in the library here?
E-R-O.
That's how you build tension and creep someone out. I just wish it happened more often. I'm always more in favor of building an atmosphere of dread than I am cheap jump scares. Its largest problem is that you're never really in control when the jump scare moments happen. Sure, you press some QTEs, but you never get that something is chasing you up the stairs feeling. Even when someone is literally chasing you up the stairs. With everything said and done, I actually love the look of Until Dawn. I'm also a huge fan of the performances they got out of the actors. I think cheaping out in this department could have destroyed this game entirely. So if you've ever played a Telltale adventure game, you have an idea of what you're in for when it comes to the gameplay. At least it doesn't make you wash dishes. In terms of gameplay, you'll be doing a few things. First is walking around and exploring these open areas. Unlike a game like The Walking Dead Season 1, you won't be talking to your friends and getting their opinions on the events. This game is really focused on the story it's telling. You can also pick up and look at clues. These are all about different historical events that happened on the mountain. Now, those will give you lore, but you can ignore them, for the most part. They may not feel relevant at the moment, so if you want to come back to them, they're stored in a menu for you to go back to whenever you want. You'll also need to do some basic aiming. There are some action scenes later in the game, but at the beginning it's pretty ham-fisted stuff.
Well, I don't know when you put it like that. Hey! Oh!
You'll also be interacting with objects, and I mean mostly just opening doors and basic commands. And there are some QuickTime events.
Should I push it?
That's what buttons were for, I guess.
Now some of these are deadly with no do-overs.
Help! Please! Someone! I'm going to die!
You'll also need to hold the PlayStation controller really still. Yep. And finally, you'll need to make some decisions. Some are dialogue related, however some are more urgent. If you only play games that are mechanically demanding, then Until Dawn won't be for you. This game is designed to be played by everyone, and I think that's a good idea. Someone who may not be interested in video games at all may be able to pick up the controller and have a good time with you. There are some clues that led me to believe Supermassive wanted people to play this game with a group of friends on the couch, all shouting at the TV. It's mainly the previously on Until Dawn segments. The game is presented like a TV show, so it can also be done in short chunks. Until Dawn is more narratively driven than anything else, so let's break that down. Everyone is gathered up in the lodge a year to the day of Hannah and Beth's disappearance. As everyone makes their way to the lodge, which is accessible only by cable car, you're introduced to everyone through a nice little character screen that tells you a little tidbit of information and some character personality traits. I was into it at first, until the game barraged me with 8 character sheets within an hour. And then the more I went along, I kind of realized that the character traits were useless. If you give me full control over their choices, they're going to be exactly who I want them to be. Except there's no way to make Matt a likable character, I guess.
Son of a bitch! Seriously, Emily? What the hell, man?
Hey, listen, it's probably nothing.
Nothing, you think?
Well, yeah.
Is it ever just nothing with him?
Throwing these screens up is also just kind of lazy writing. Just show me.
No one leave. Okay? It's not safe out there. I'll be back soon.
Don't tell me. I did get a feel for each character by the end of the first chapter as they made their way to the lodge. This first chapter is also the most grating one in the game. Everyone acts like a horror movie stereotype.
Okay, that sounds vaguely dirty.
My lady. My lady.
I don't think any of these characters are really outstanding either. The word serviceable comes to mind when I think about them.
Excuse me? Did you say something?
Oh, did you not hear me? Was your sluttiness too loud?
For chapter 2, Mike and Jess don't have a place to stay, so they get to stay in the secluded guest cabin. Matt and Emily go back to the rail car to get a bag they left, and Josh wants to use the Luigi board with Chris and Ashley. And Sam just wants to take a bath. So, if that sounded like a lot of characters, it is. I think 8 is about too many. Some outright disappear for the majority of the game, which is a good case for some characters.
Mike, stay away from our girlfriend.
Dude, what are you talking about?
Stay away from Emily.
Also, don't worry if you can't remember anyone's names. They're also generic. Also, Peter Stormer's in this game. He plays a psychiatrist who's doing a really shitty job.
And how are we feeling? I believe that in our last session, you were not completely honest with me.
Honestly, his inclusion in the game is heavy-handed, and is a really bad example of attempting to break the fourth wall.
Things are getting pretty tense out there, aren't they? Is the night going the way you hoped it would?
It drives me crazy when games want you to contemplate the fact that you're playing a video game, and they always try and make you think about how even though your actions don't have any real-world consequences, people are being digitally murdered. I think most games don't really pull this off well, and just use it as a stupid gimmick. If you can't do it well, don't do it at all. Yeah, I keep forgetting he was in this game. So, Sam turns on the hot water, and the small group uses the Wawag board. Wait a minute.
Where do I obtain a wedgie board? Do I have to make my own wedgie, or can I buy one from a witch or vegan?
Oh my god.
She's vegan.
It all makes sense now. Wait, where was I going with this? They get a message from the ghost of Hannah.
Proof. There's proof.
In the library.
Spooky. And this kind of rubs Josh the wrong way, and he leaves, which is understandable. This leaves Chris and Ashley to find the clue that Ghost Hannah was pointing them towards. Mike and Jessica get majorly sidetracked on their way to the cabin while being stalked by this dude. They make it to the cabin, but not before being chased to the woods by a... something?
Was it a bear?
Yeah, gotta be.
Jessica realized that she dropped her phone and she freaks out, only to have it thrown through the window a second later. Now, this was one of the few moments in the game that filled me with genuine dread. Oh yeah, and Matt and Emily are just gone. So before I go into spoilers, I just want to say the pacing in this game is excellent. After the first few chapters. I got so bored I paused to answer a text message during a jump scare. After it gets going, it doesn't stop, and it evolves in a natural way, and the escalation of events is great. It kept me interested in what was going on, and there's always something new around the corner. I know people like to play these games multiple times to see what their choices can do, and change the outcomes. To me, these games are a study of your character, and what decisions you would make in these instances. Now, I'm only really interested in playing through these games all the way through once. So, this is my way of saying, spoiler warning, if you don't want spoilers, skip to the timestamp. Jesus, this game is stupid fun. Initially, I tried to summarize the whole story, but that didn't work. Imagine trying to explain the whole plot of a TV season in 3 minutes. I'm only going to be talking about the main monster beats in the story, decisions you make, character deaths, and the ending. So let's start with those monsters. There's a lot of context that has to do with every monster. So here we go. Try and keep up.
Torture porn!
The first monster or bad guy I'm going to talk about is this creepy masked killer. At the lodge proper, Chris and Ashley find the clue and then get captured by this guy. Chris wakes up and has to play a Saw-esque game where no matter what you choose, Josh, yeah, I'm sure he's fine. Chris and Ashley go back to the house to find Sam, who, yep.
I'm going to give you 10 seconds. 9, 8.
No.
Chris and Ashley then get captured again. Really, guys? Then this scene happens. Just remember this scene for me.
It should be me. You chose to save me before.
Fuck.
Let me choose this time. Let me choose to save you. If I do one less thing in my life, let me do this. Chris, please. Oh God. No.
Boom. Butterfly effect.
Mike frees Sam and sees the aftermath of whatever just happened with Chris and Ashley. Turns out, Josh, I told you he'd be fine, devised this plan to torture his friends because of the prank they pulled on Hannah last year. Even though Chris was asleep when the prank happened, but let's just ignore that fact, I guess.
Where they just need, like, something to bond over, you know, some sort of traumatic event to send them into each other's arms. I mean, at this rate, they'll be in the geriatric ward before Chris makes a move.
Now, I'm not really torn either way on this reveal. It's okay, but the plot holes and leaps in logic are enormous. But I do love his character design. That's spooky.
Oh, you should have seen your faces. Hook, line, and sinker for every little stinker.
Up next is this weirdo. He stalks Jess and Mike to their cabin, and when Jess gets taken, Mike races after her. Mike finds him leaving the scene, and he follows the guy to the sanatorium, where he learns he's been living there, with some wolves. After that, he disappears for a long time. Then later, Emily, who's now lost in the mines, runs into him. Only for it to be revealed that he's a good guy.
Use these! Get the hell out of here! Now!
He's been hunting the Wendigo on this mountain and fills the whole team in on it. I mean, okay, twist. It does feel weird that when Mike finally gets back to the lodge, he freaks out on Josh like Josh was this guy, when clearly he isn't. Oh yeah, and finally there's Wendigos. Ooh, he did not make it far. To escape the mountain, they need to go back to the Wendigo's home and get Josh back.
I'm gonna get that key right from that thing's goddamn bedroom, and then I'm gonna get us all the hell out of here.
Or at least they need the keys to the cable car. Now, these monsters have been teased the whole game. One takes Jess, and one cuts the ranger tower down when Matt and Emily call for help. That's actually one of my favorite scenes in the game, I think. Now, I actually really like the folklore and story of the Wendigo. The first time I heard about the Wendigo was with Stephen King's Pet Sematary. Where every creature in the game so far has been a dude in a mask, it was refreshing to see the supernatural happening. Basically, in the game, if you're on the mountain and are forced to consume human flesh to survive, you turn into a Wendigo, which is a hyper-fast killing machine with armor only weak to fire. I mentioned that not everything looked great. The Wendigos have a great character design, however, they look like stop motion when they move, and it drives me up the wall. Their animation is so janky, I guess Andy Serkis wasn't available. That is not a good look. They're interesting and fun, and there's a cool twist tied to them. Are these three baddies good? They're serviceable to make the plot work. I wish that Josh's arc had more work put into it. But this game is basically a 10-episode TV series, and to its credit, the escalation really is there, with lots of super fun moments. A return to the sanatorium with the wolf is a standout moment for me. It reminded me of Army of Darkness.
Okey-dokey, bud. I'll catch you on the flip side, huh?
I'm sure the wolf is fine.
All right, pal.
Let's talk about deaths.
I'm going to die!
So, everyone in the game can die. Most die because of the choices you make in the moment. Some are common sense, like, I know Wendigos can only sense movement, but I made them run anyway. That's a dumb move on my part. But I was really hoping for a culmination of decisions that led to character deaths. I mean, they all have these stat screens. Why not have certain thresholds for if they die or not? As far as I can tell, one of the only decisions you make that will come back to haunt you is deciding who to shoot with the gun. If you choose Ashley, she lets Chris die.
Ash! What are you doing?
You chose to save me before. Let me choose this time. Let me choose to save you. Let me choose to save you.
I would have really loved for your choices to carry on and decide the fate of characters way down the road. But, as for now, that's just a pipe dream. Maybe in the next game. The game ends with a standoff between Mike, Sam, and Gollum, who clearly has been going through a midlife crisis. He looks good, though. Gas leak, check. Broken bulb, check. Someone just needs to turn the light switch on. If you run early, Mike dies. You need to distract the Wendigos so everyone can get out of the house before you blow it up. If there is a final boss fight, it's this. I love a boss fight you can beat by putting the controller on the table. The ending seems weird for a game that boasts that it will be drastically different based on smaller decisions. If you want to jump back in and play again, go crazy. But, honestly, this game always ends the same. House blows up, you're rescued, and cue the survivor stories. Just different people will survive. So, feel free to go back in, but events don't really drastically change. There's some obvious plot holes here, like, why didn't the flamethrower guy warn them in Act 2? Why didn't they all die the first year? The Wendigos were clearly there. How did Joss survive while he was setting all this shit up? This story is kind of just stupid fun, and you really shouldn't think too much about it. I didn't love this game, but I sure as hell enjoyed it. So that's Until Dawn. As for a sequel, I believe they made 2 VR games based on it. One is an on-rails shooter, and the other is a horror game. Some were received better than others. I personally think Until Dawn could have a sequel like Rec 2, something more action-oriented, but I wouldn't be upset if they took a whole new direction. After waffling around for a few years, Supermassive is set on putting out a proper follow-up. Now, I can't guess how Man of Medan is going to do. I mean, it looks cool, I guess. And I am interested to see what Supermassive does with that game. However, I think they could take this everyone dies gimmick they have to other scenarios or settings. I don't know, like The Wire or a science fiction story. Really, the sky's the limit. I hope that Man of Medan does well. So, should you buy Until Dawn? Well, I can tell you that if you only play games that are mechanically demanding, then no.
Boom. Nice one, Mikey.
I don't know. Play Micromages instead. If you want a more serious story with a great plot, God of War exists. For everyone else, I really recommend this game. It usually retails for about 20 Canadian, so it's pretty cheap. I think this game would be best experienced with other people. If you have a group of friends that get together every so often, you can play chapter by chapter and really have a great time with it. As always, thanks for watching to the end. Also, big shout out to Will and Hannah who have been helping me edit my scripts, and watching through the rough cuts, it helps so much. Anyway, see you for my next review where I take a look at a stealth game with hacking. No, not that one. Man of Medan. That can't be it. Okay, I need to look up an interview to figure out how to pronounce this game.